Thank everybody for coming out. It's the pre-season meeting for season 25-26 for the sand relocation. Connor Twitty, I'm the environmental planner. I've been heading it the last 2 or 3 seasons now. This year I won't be the head person. Greg Daisy, the planner here with Town of Nags, is going to be the point person. I'll still be around, and we also have our code enforcement officer Jonathan Kirks. All three of us going to kind of tag teaming this together. So I'm going to let Greg do the first half about the sand, and then I'll come back and talk about the cost share and go over that a little bit more, and then we'll go over questions at the very end. So thank you again for coming out. Hopefully this is helpful in some ways, and then we'll get y'all out of here as quick as we can.
As Connor just stated, my name is Greg Daisy. I'm a planner for the town of Nags Head. I guess this is my 2nd season with the sand relocation program. So I'm going to kind of give you kind of a top-down view, very general kind of rules and requirements of what needs to be done for the sand relocation. I will recommend, if after this you do have any extra additional questions, obviously reach out to any of us for them, but the town has a great wealth of information on the website. There is actually a town kind of, it's labeled Sand Removal and Relocation Guidance and Frequently Asked Questions, very useful. So I'll just kind of go through some slides. If anyone has any questions as I go through, feel free to stop me. So this is going to go through the authorization process, rules and requirements. And then once that's through, I think Connor's going to get back up and go through the dune management cost share program. So this program was initiated to deal with migrating sand. Obviously living on a barrier island, weather systems, wind systems come through and migrate sand. So where it is last month is not where it's going to be next month, and you can kind of get the gist of that. Constantly moving. You can see here's a good example up there. Dune walkway, clear, and then obviously bottom picture not very clear, so that has to get removed so people can access the beach on and off. This is a CAMA. This is related to CAMA, obviously, being an ocean hazard area. Typical CAMA process of minor permits can be up to 2 weeks. This sand relocation process kind of streamlines it. We can get it done, obviously. The speed at which we are able to expedite these authorizations does have a lot to do with the material that's presented to us in the application. The stronger the application, the more information you provide in your application, the quicker we can process it. And obviously we're aiming for that 3 to 4 day turnaround once we receive a complete application. This sand relocation program is tied to the town's county major for beach nourishment. It is for clearing of structures only, pool fences, houses, walkways, that kind of situation. We're aiming to minimize dune disturbance as much as possible. Obviously moving sand out in that area, you're going to have some disturbance here and there, but this program, we're trying to have as minimal amount of disturbance as possible, but still clear the actual structures and walkways. Some things that we don't want to see, removal of any dunes and any, what I guess you could call that, cutting down dunes for any kind of view enhancement. Obviously the higher the dune, the more protective it is, so we're trying to get sand away from the actual structures and walkways, but we don't want to disturb the actual dunes. So the sand that is moved with the sand relocation program must stay within the system. Any sand collected must stay within the property, obviously right in front of the property. Ocean side must stay in that area. We don't want any situation where the sand is removed off the property. And we want to obviously maintain the existing healthy dunes and the dune vegetation. Obviously, dune vegetation is very important for the structural integrity of the dunes. The more vegetation that is on the dune, the less wind transport of the sand on that dune system. So this is kind of a general overview of the authorization process. Homeowners and contractors must fill out the application. We're going to go through a little bit of more specific information on that application in a couple minutes, but basically it's all through our web portal on the Town of Nags Head website. You're going to upload basically general information of location of project, some general guidelines of what you're moving, depth of what you're moving, which is pretty important, as we'll see a little bit later. Very important for you guys as contractors, make sure you have kind of a valid contract going forward before you submit anything. Don't want to get into a situation where homeowner has not quite accepted your work, but you're already submitting the application. So very important to get on the same page as your clients as we kind of submit those applications. One of the more important aspects of the sand relocation program is this kind of on-site meetings. Generally, there's 2 on-site meetings. There can be more. Obviously, if you run into situations as you get out there and you start moving sand, you need to kind of rethink the process and maybe add more information. That's important that you contact us so we can work through it. But basically, once you submit an application, we'll request, or you guys can request, a on-site meeting with one of us. We'll go out there with the application in hand and just make sure that what you provided as far as information, like I said, yards, cubic yards, depth, locations of transport of the sand. Once we get on that on-site meeting, if everything kind of lines up to what you submitted, it's quite an easy process. Once we complete that first initial on-site visit, once we leave the site, you're free to work. There is some time requirements as far as days of the week I'll get into on a later slide, but the authorization letter, once you submit it and we process that application, the authorization letter will be emailed to you. Must be signed through email unless we actually bring it to you and sign it in person. Authorization letter needs to be on the person whenever the work is going on. So as soon as you get your authorization signed, returned to you, always have that on site in case there's any kind of issues of anyone wanting to know that if you are authorized or not. That authorization letter is your approval to move forward with the project. Here's the first page of your authorization, or application, I should say. Just basically general information on location of the project, and then authorization, or I'm sorry, information related to the person who's actually going to do the work. So that first section is homeowner information, location of the actual project, and that bottom section is the contractor. Whoever is actually out there moving sand around would be in that second section. Some questions. This is kind of getting into the more detailed aspect of the application. Goes through areas of disturbance. We want as accurate as possible. I'm not sure if we're going to go out there with tape, but we may be able to, and that's important to now follow up with. Once the project's complete, we go back out there to make sure that everything is or was done according to the application, and that's kind of what gets into this section. We ask for pretty specific information, areas of disturbance, equipment to be used, depth of the excavation of the sand movement. Whatever you're moving, we need to try and get an idea of how deep you guys are going. Stabilization is required if you're moving more than an area of 1,000 square foot or 2,700 cubic yards of moving sand. Stabilization is required. And stabilization can be either sand fencing or sprigging, vegetation, or both. One of the more important portions of that second page is beach access. Some of the properties around here, you have the ability to move out towards the beach on the actual property, whereas other properties, due to the location of the neighbors' structures, walkways, that kind of situation, sometimes movement from the property out to the beach you're not able to do that. So this has a section where if there is a town-owned beach access that has vehicular access, you are able to use that, but you must get prior authorization and prior approval to do that. So as you guys are putting together these applications, that's something to pay very close attention to. How are you getting to that east side of the dune? If you do need to use a beach access, that's where this information goes on that second page, so that we can approve that. Part of the application is a sketch of your project. So this is kind of a representative example. This is a very good one, I must say. So this has all the information that we actually need. You can see where the actual areas next to the structures that are being removed up to 6 feet are shown. You show the actual dune crest, the dune that is not to be disturbed is shown on there. And then also very important, the sand deposition area. Once this area or once the structures are cleared of the sand, where are you putting that sand? And as I said, it has to stay within the system, so that's something to take in consideration if you're going to that east side of the dune or somewhere else that's unvegetated, you may place it there. Again, you can see the house clearly labeled, that walkway labeled. So this is a good example of what we kind of want. Kind of that top-down view, GIS, DCM is GIS, Town Nags has GIS. If you want to use that kind of top-down view of a GIS drawing, that's kind of an easy way to do it. Print it out, label everything on there, make sure you use something that we can read on there. And that's just kind of another way to go about it. And the right side of this drawing shows kind of what I just was describing. We want to see transport area, path to get the sand to the beach, sand removal areas, and very important, property lines. All your work has to be done within the property lines of your client. We can't have sand deposition outside of the property lines, so it's very important to show those property lines, and that GIS kind of printout helps with that because it actually shows the property lines. Kind of some more details of this sand relocation project, clearing around 6 feet around building pools, walkways, and gazebos. Limits on excavation through dunes. So obviously we understand that a walkway might be kind of covered up by a kind of migrating healthy dune system that is able to be cleared out, but obviously on each side of that walkway we have to try and keep those dune systems as undisturbed as possible. And then I touched this kind of on this in the beginning, absolutely no lowering of existing dunes. If your client wants to lower a dune so they can have a better view of the ocean, please recommend that they do not do that or do not ask for that. And then depth of excavation is limited to 1 foot below any kind of structure, or actually a walkway or gazebo area out on the dune can only be 1 foot below that. Here's some examples. You can see where that picture on the left there, you probably need some sand removal around that structure. Bottom right, pool fences, obviously a large portion of this project is sand being blown up to pool fences, creating a kind of load-bearing situation where these pool fences become compromised. So obviously this program can be used to get that sand away from those pool fences and relieve all that pressure. Here's some examples of what not to do. One of the most important things is when you're moving sand, if you are moving sand with a lot of debris in it, and this could be anything like torn up walkways, relic walkways that got buried numerous years ago, you got to make sure that when you deposit that sand, especially on the east side of the beach, east side of the dune, but obviously the whole project, we don't want kind of debris piles. When you pile debris or pile sand with debris in it, eventually all that sand's going to get moved out by the wind, and then all it is going to be a pile of kind of debris, and we don't want to see that. The picture on the bottom left there, you can see where somebody was a little heavy-handed, we would say, moving that sand out there. We're trying to do kind of the least amount of disturbance as possible, and that picture shows what I would categorize as a lot of disturbance. The picture on top right there shows a lot of debris. If you were to move that sand out of there, which you're allowed to do, you just have to get that debris out of there. And that bottom picture shows sand fencing. I think that is showing it at a wrong angle, if I'm not mistaken. Here's some other examples. All this structure here, you can pull that material, the sand, away 6 feet. You can see that right-hand picture, that kind of stairway right there, that would definitely need to be addressed. And that vegetation there, obviously we want minimal amount of vegetation left. It had structure to the sand dune, but that vegetation would probably have to be removed. Some additional examples, obviously underneath houses, certain areas get inundated with sand. Bottom right, another kind of beach walkover situation where that could be cleared out, obviously in the front of it, but then also on the sides of it. And then that top part, another kind of beach access way that's gotten buried. Here's some good examples of what we like to see on that kind of final post-project site visit. You can see there's a healthy amount of sprigging on that left-hand picture. Picture on the right there shows that you also, in conjunction with the sprigging, you have your sand fencing, and sand fencing, very strict requirements on how you put in kind of the rules and requirements of that sand fencing we'll get into in a couple slides, but right there shows the proper spacing between the sand fence and the proper angle of the sand fence. This is kind of getting into what I was just discussing. This is an actual turtle nest crawl. So at some point a turtle went up through that sand fencing to the top of that, kind of probably right before the vegetation starts for nesting activities. And you can see where it was able to get through the sand fencing because it was properly spaced. Any kind of sand fencing in a more parallel to the ocean situation, that would have cut off the movement of that turtle, which would have led it to probably try and lay somewhere where it might not be too viable. Here's some rules and requirements and the authorization conditions. Dune disturbance must be the minimum necessary to relieve the structures of the sand around it. Work can only occur Monday through Friday from 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. There are very few cases if you run into some kind of emergency situation, please contact us and we possibly could pre-authorize you to work on it, but we do suggest to try and keep that to Monday through Friday. In the past, there was a beach push bulldozing situation that was allowed on the beaches. That's not allowed anymore. So obviously, this is that kind of bullet touches on that. You're not allowed to go down kind of more towards the ocean and then push sand back up towards the dune. That is not allowed through this program. Altered dunes shall be restored to pre-disturbance conditions. And that's also important on these beach accesses. If you get permission to use a beach access, Town of Nags had beach access to gain access to that east side of the dune or waterward side of the dune. It's very important that you try and leave those beach access drivers in pre-project conditions after you finish the project. You need to maintain natural slope as closely as possible. Sand placement on beach shall be no closer than 30 foot to normal high water and must stay within the property boundaries. And that's a situation that we kind of tackle during that initial site visit. We'll walk on that east side of the dune with you, make sure that we're all looking at the same thing. And then obviously, when you choose to do this project or any specific project, it's going to have a lot to do with it. Obviously, hard winds, storm system pushing in the east, your normal water level is going to be a little higher than if it's kind of normal conditions. So that's something to pay attention to as we get out there on those initial site visits. And then once again, no lowering of dunes for views. This goes into kind of our kind of phases or types of disturbance. It's going to fit into, once you fill out that application, we'll be able to fit it into type A, B, C, or D. Type A is the minimal amount of disturbance, and then type D, you're going into obviously 1,000 square foot or more than 2,700 cubic yards of material being moved. And then restoration is required for any vegetation disturbance from more than 20 square foot. So that's something important. That's not a lot. So we're trying to minimally disturb all vegetation out there, but we do understand that vegetation along that 6 foot area that you're allowed to clear does have to be removed. But then again, we have to kind of calculate whether it's going to be 20 square foot or more. Now I was getting into that rules and requirements of the sand fence installation, and I tend to bring these on my initial site visit in case you need a copy. We can find this, I think, on our Nags Head website, but it kind of gets into the kind of nuts and bolts of that. Maximum 10 foot of toe of the dune, so you cannot go waterward more than 10 foot. Your spacing between the sections has to be 7 foot or more. 10 foot sections, so basically from the toe of dune waterward, it can only be 10 foot section. And then that 45-degree angle to the ocean kind of shows you at that bottom level kind of why they came up with that deal with the possible turtle crawls. Here's the rules and requirements deal with spraying. So obviously one of the more popular is the American beach grass. Sea oats can be planted through late spring. Fertilize over the planting area at a rate equivalent of 1.4 pounds per 1,000 square foot. And then another really good kind of useful tool, especially for the plants, is this dune book that's referenced. And if anyone emails us, we can send you a link to it. It's quite informational, has a lot of information on kind of the what healthy dunes look like, the components of healthy dunes, the components of not healthy dunes. It kind of goes all through that, so it's very interesting reading. And then obviously worst case scenarios, we kind of get out there and someone has not gone kind of according to what the application states, maybe above and beyond what was approved. severity of the violation will be taken into consideration. It kind of speaks for itself. Obviously you guys are here to get on our kind of town maintain approved contractors list. So anyone calling up us asking for contractor information, we have this kind of list that you provide your information to, and then we can provide them. 3 minor violations or 1 severe violation will be result removal from the distribution list. And any violation can result in both town and CAMA violations and mitigation requirements. Something to keep in mind as you go out there. This is like time frame. Authorization applications are going to open November 1st, 2025. Once we receive your application, process it, and then have our on-site meeting, after those 2 components are satisfied, work can begin on November 17th, 2025. And then kind of going through this whole season, sand relocation applications will be accepted until April 15th, 2026. And that is due to that kind of hard April 30th, 2026 cutoff. So theoretically, we can get a application in on the 14th, 15th, and then be able to process it so that you are able to get out there and work, or have all work completed by the 30th. A couple other limits of authorization. All of the sand relocation program is specifically for properties Bonnet Street to access to the southern town limits. So Bonnet Street south down to kind of South Nags Head, NPS border, that area. And then work north of this area can still be done, but it will just be through either a CAMA minor permit or a CAMA exemption, depending on the size and scope of the project. Then I'm going to step aside. Connor's going to go through the dune management cost share. And again, anyone has any questions?
Spell your last name.
D-A-I-S-E-Y. Greg Davies.
Mr. Davis,
Yes.
the restoration greater than 20 square feet, can you define restoration? What's the
So
difference between that and stabilization?
Yeah, so that's a situation where we, I don't know if it was tied to, is it tied to the 20 square foot?
Restoration, so if you're removing greater than 20 square feet of existing natural vegetation, you'll need to re-sprig that when you're done with your project.
So we would recommend it kind of in the same area that you're disturbing it. And obviously we can pick an area close to there. Obviously, like you said, if you're moving sand around a walkway, it has to be moved, but generally it's going to be within the same area. Obviously, we're not going to ask you to replant it on the area you just moved, but we can find a different area right in kind of the system to do that.
All that can be worked out on the on-site visit?
Sure. Sure, because that application captures your amount of vegetation, proposed vegetation disturbance. So if we review that application and you have more than 20 square foot, that will kind of trigger us when we get out there to start discussing where you want to put that.
All right, so this is our 3rd season, I believe, for the cost share program. We were awarded again from the commissioners $400,000 to go towards helping stabilize and or moving sand for homeowners on the oceanfront. Date's going to be the same. There's applications opened up on November 1st. Myself or Miss Lily at the back right there. If you're here, you can see her waving right there. We'll be the two that help do your paperwork. For contractors, just feel free to tell your clients about this. Just make sure they fill out the application, because unless they want us to pay you as well. So I mean, if they want their money back, they need to be the one to fill out the application. Do your best to help them with like the numbers on what they need for filling that in. If they you know, I know some people do get confused that the sand relocation and the dune management are different applications, but they are a little different, but pretty similar along the same lines. You know, they have up to $3,500 if they're moving sand as well, but stabilization is required, or they can get just $1,000 if you're just doing grass, sea oats, or sand fence. Oh yes, and I know in years prior we've said every 3 years, which can get a little confusing. So we're saying every 3 seasons. It just sounds a little better. So like, you know, this year's 25, 26. So they could get if they get the 35 and 25, 26, they could get the 1,000 and the 26, 27, 27, 28, and then 28, 29, they'd be able to get the 3,500 again. That's obviously, again, owner must fill it out. Recommend working with your contractor to see what they're, you know, how much area they're doing, or how much plants they're installing, or how much sand fence. If you're using an LLC, or like the house is a rental under a business, just make sure if the check matches your application in the W-9, because we've had that a couple times where they've used a personal check, but the W-9 they use is the LLC, and we got to make sure for our paperwork's sake that the information matches. And then we'll reimburse. They'll reimburse or mail you a check through our finance department, and then that usually, as soon as you get that in, takes a couple of days. They mail checks out on Fridays. Let's see. That should be the main thing. Yeah, if you're, one thing I will say is for anybody who wants to do this, make sure apply on November 1st. You have until April to do all the work for either the sand or the cost share. But if you go ahead and apply for the cost share in November, that'll go ahead and set your money aside for you. That way, that's, you know, and then you have until April to spend it, and then you have until June to turn the paperwork in. We just need a copy of any invoices that goes along with it, receipts. If you buy this, you can do it yourself. If you install sand fence and all that yourself, we just need copies of invoices, receipts, the W-9, and then obviously, you know, apply for the application and the sand relocation, or the cost share and the sand relocation if you're doing both. If you use multiple contractors for sand and then use a stabilization, just make sure you get us an invoice with both, and then kind of have the invoice breakdown. You know, it's X amount for sand, X amount for stabilization, then make sure the address is on that invoice as well. Obviously, like kind of got messed around, but you know, as Greg said, we'll do a final inspection. If things are off, it will be up to like 50 to 500 per day. You know, authorization obviously must be applied by 15th of April, and all the work must be done by April 30th. And then all the cost share paperwork, we have until June 23rd to get turned in to be able to reimburse you, because it's due before the end of our physical year, because it is a budgeted item. Contractor list, this is one of the big reasons we do this meeting, besides trying to help answer questions the best we can. Obviously, if you're a contractor here tonight, if nothing's changed that had you sign in, if you're newer, or if any phone numbers change, just please sign on the back table back there. Just put your name, business name, phone number, email, and what services you provide. You know, obviously, Greg mentioned violations. Thankfully, we haven't run into this too many times. If it is multiple times, we will remove you from the list, and then if it keeps going, we can suspend your business license within the town. There's everybody's contacts. We have Greg, Jonathan, myself, Miss Lily. We put Steve Szymanski up there. He's our chief building inspector, because we know we do get a lot of questions about people needing to, you know, raise their walkways or redo their walkways. Greg, we have another gentleman, planner in the office, Chris Tremblay. They would handle like the zoning side. Steve would handle all your building questions when it comes to redoing walkways or adding a walkway or things of that sort. So we wanted to include his contact up there as well. That's it. Anybody have any questions? Yes, sir.
The cost sharing every 3 years, is that tied to the owner or tied to the property? If the property switched owners,
Owner.
Yeah, owner. So yeah, if they sell it, the new owner would be able to get it.
got it.
Anybody else? Yes, sir, Mr. Andy.
Sand fencing, can you do 2 rows?
Like doubled up?
I'm not sure I get what you're saying, but if you can, are you saying
Like,
2 10-foot sections back to back?
Maybe like this.
Yeah.
And then you intersect.
I mean, as long as you can keep your
Yeah.
7 foot in separation in between.
I've done it before, it works.
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanna know if it's legal.
Yeah, I mean, so as long as you
If
can.
you wanna send us a picture of that, 'cause that'd be interesting to see.
Well, it's under a big dune right now.
Oh, okay, so, yeah.
So
It works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, and second question,
Yeah.
a long time ago, when Todd was alive, told me not to use treated posts for sand fencing.
I don't know if you'll find that much without treated. We did have somebody ask before if you could use like snow fencing. I guess it's dyed, has some kind of red oxide to it, and I wouldn't because it does bleed. Obviously, we don't want things bleeding all over the beach. As far as treated, like salt treated lumber, I'd say that's fine. I mean, it's what a lot of the decks and stuff are made out of anyway, so it would just probably outlast the rest of the sand fence. But you could at least reattach the sand fence to the post or with new sand fence. So, all right. Anybody else?
That debris you're talking about, might put out, what do you do with that?
Haul it away best you can. I mean, I know the town, we have the bulk pickup, but I know we can't do it of contractors. But so if you can bring a trailer, bring some way to get rid of it, that'd be the best. I mean, I know it's not always it's not on you guys to that reason it's there. Because I know some builders are bad about throwing things in the dunes, or people are bad about throwing things in the dunes. If you can just pick it up and toss it for us, greatly appreciate it.
And you put that road like homeowner does, so we have to haul it off, pass it on to the customer.
Yep.
Okay.
And that's what I was kind of getting into. We don't want to see it buried at all. Obviously,
No.
what happens out there, what is buried now might not be buried at a later date. So we want to try to keep that off.
Why did the sand fencing 7 feet apart, can it be any further apart?
Yeah. It is the minimal has to be 7.
Okay. I know a lot of times if it were like 8 or 9 feet, you could get them clean to it.
Yes,
Okay.
the 7 foot is the minimal because the one picture that was like the kind of don't do is you only had to I'm not a small person, but I had to turn completely sideways and squeeze through it. You had about 2.5, 3 foot. Yeah, that bottom picture right there with the red circle, you had about 2 to 3 feet in between the sand. And that's why there's so many rows because it just got stacked too close together. So the 7 is the minimal. So if you want to do 8, 10 foot apart,
Yeah,
as long as you're in property line, that's fine.
Okay.
We can do that. So
But I will say that the length of the section's not a
yeah,
minimum.
the 10s.
That's the maximum.
Yep.
10-foot sections, that's the maximum you're allowed.
Cool. Anybody else? All right. I think nothing else. So appreciate you guys' time. Thanks for coming out again. And if you have any questions, I think all of our cards are on the back table. So feel free to grab one of them or take a picture of the screen. Give us a call, email. We can gladly answer any questions you can come up afterwards.